Welcome to Brain Lady Speaks with Julie Anderson on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network. Julie Brain Lady Anderson is considered to be one of the nation's top experts on the brain-personality connection. She has been inspiring her audiences to fire up their brains and ignite positive changes in their relationships. And now she is here to bring that knowledge to you. The information she shares will help those who hear it to accelerate their success in life and business through the discovery of their natural gifts and maximizing their brain power. When you learn to tap into the potential of your natural gifts and the power of the brain-mind connection, there is no limit to what you can accomplish. Today and every Wednesday on Brain Lady Speaks, you'll explore the latest findings to see how they have practical application in your life. And now, get ready to join Julie Anderson on Brain Lady Speaks on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network. Take it away, Julie.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are here on the, it is the 13th of July, right smack in the middle of summer out here in sunny California. I hope everyone on listening here is doing well, feeling good. It's a great morning this morning. I don't know why I have energy. I didn't sleep well last night. Maybe that's it. I'm delirious. You've got a delirious host today. This is the delirious Brain Lady, Julie Anderson on the Brain Lady Speaks radio show on the Lessons in Joyful Living Network. I am very happy to be here with you today. Looking forward to sharing some fun stuff. We're going to have fun on the show today. I realized as I was preparing for today's program, I'm going through this mountain, and I honestly mean mountain. It took me almost a full day just to clear off the desk of all of the research material that I had laying out on all various parts of that brain personality connection and how all of this incredible, information coming out of neuroscience helps us in our day-to-day life. And I was like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I decided I'm going to take, because there's so many little bits of information, that's what we're going to do today. We aren't staying focused on one specific topic, except that the brain is the main topic. But all of the different little research, studies that have come out over the last 3 or 4 years and how they can help us in our life, business, and relationships. So today's just going to be kind of this mosaic, if you will, of brain research that has come out and how I think it's fascinating. I think you'll find it fascinating. And the practical application becomes very intriguing in studies that are still in the midst of being studied, so they haven't completed the line of thinking and where the possibilities might be in the future, as well as things that they have already found absolutely scientifically factual and how you can utilize that information. So we're going to talk about things like the sense of smell and how to use that, how they're using it in marketing, as well as how they're using it in cognitive therapy, stress therapy. We're going to talk about changes in the new mother's brain right after she gives birth and several months after. That was fascinating. We're going to talk about language, how language affects the brain and how it helps to create larger areas in the brain by learning multiple languages. We're going to talk about tips on learning stress in the gut. We talked about the gut last week. We're going to talk about actual research that's being done on comatose patients, brain therapy on comatose patients, which I think is really exciting. We're going to talk about sugar and its negative effects on memory. We're going to talk about laughter and its positive effects on memory. So we just have a really full show, and I'm just going to keep going with all of these little tidbits of information on the brain, and we're just going to get in as many as we can. And this might be a format that we do once a month because, like I said, there's just so much so much information coming out of the field of neuroscience that if I were to take each of these studies all by itself and focus an entire program on that one study, it would take me, I couldn't keep up with neuroscience. Like neuroscience would come out with studies faster than I could spend an hour talking about them on the show. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to have some fun. Before we start getting into those studies, I do want to, as always, remind everyone, repetition for emphasis, to reach out and connect with me on all of my social media platforms. Connect with me as Purple Brain Lady on Facebook. And there's also Your Best Mind Online page on Facebook. So I share more of the technical games, brain games and memory techniques and things like that on the Your Best Mind Online Facebook page. And on the Brain Lady Speaks page, which is the Purple Brain Lady, on that particular page, I share a lot of things that new findings in research, how it affects our relationships, a lot of personal growth stuff and motivational stuff on that page. So connect with me on both those pages. I am at Brain Lady on Twitter. Love to have you follow me on Twitter. Not as active as I'd like to be on Twitter. We're kind of going to be ramping that up here to just get more in touch with my Twitter followers, as well as at Brain Lady on LinkedIn. And of course, as I've always said, reach out to me. And if you're not going to connect with me there on the social media platforms, shoot me an email. Give me an email at info@yourbestmindonline or info@brainladyspeaker.com. Both of them are .coms. Your Best Mind Online is my company website. So that's where you're going to find a lot of products and services that I offer. And that's where you can send, yourbestmindonline.com info app. That's where you can send a lot of questions, suggestions. Let me know when you're hearing some of these things, when you're listening to it. Are there things that pique your interest? Does it remind you of another dynamic speaker that you want to have me to have on? Be sure and reach out to me. Okay. All right. Let's get to the fun stuff. Lots of fun stuff. So let's start with the sense of smell. So the sense of smell has always been very fascinating to me because we have our main senses, touch, taste, sight, hearing, and smell. And what a lot of people don't realize about the sense of smell is it is unique over and above the other four main senses, because the other senses, all of the information or data coming in through all of your nerves and the information system that comes in, it goes into what I call routing systems in the brain. So you touch something, it has to go through a sequence of circuits before it hits the cognitive or the thinking portion of the brain or the subconscious of the brain. It kind of goes through this path, this complicated pathway. Whereas the sense of smell is the only sense that goes directly to the olfactory nerve, as well as to the thinking portion of the brain. So it's like when you smell something, it gets split. The information gets split. It gets duplicated. And one portion of that information or one copy of that information goes up to the thinking portion of your brain. The other copy of that information goes directly to the emotion center in the brain, which is really fascinating. Now, remember, I've talked about this in the past. The emotion center of the brain works 80,000 times faster than the thinking portion of the brain. So it's very quick to respond. It goes directly, this sense of smell goes directly to that emotion center in the brain. And the great thing about that is the reason why things like aromatherapy are so effective in calming you down, because they hit that emotion center immediately, faster than your brain can even catch up. And a lot of people know that smell. I mean, we just know it based on life experience. Smell affects our emotion. How many times have you, maybe smelled cookies or pie or something like that cooking, and it has brought you back to wonderful times you spent at your grandparents' house? For me, it does. My grandmother always made cookies, and I loved spending time growing up with my grandmother. So I can instantly feel happy, warm thoughts without even realize the reason why I'm feeling happy, warm thoughts, simply by smelling the same smells that were familiar to me as a child growing up when I would go and visit my mother. Because my home life was very dysfunctional, or my grandmother, my home life was very dysfunctional, but my Bama's house, that was the amazing place to go. So we all have had that experience. Now you know the neurological reason why, because the olfactory nerve, the sense of smell, hits directly to directly into the emotion center of the brain. So it's different access than the other senses. And now they're doing research on how can you use this information in actual therapy? How can you utilize this in a positive way to help individuals? Well, they're doing research. Different firms are doing research. Different colleges are doing research on this. And one of the things that they're working on is oxytocin. Now, oxytocin is a hormone and a neuromodulator. As you know, a lot of people know oxytocin. It's connected with either romantic bonding or emotional bonding, familiar bonding. This is familial. This is when a mother is breastfeeding. This is the hormone that is released in the brain. Interestingly enough, it is the same hormone in women, not in men, in women when they have an orgasm that is released in the brain as well. That's why intimacy is more associated with bonding to a woman as opposed to the experience that men feel, because in their brain it is a release of dopamine. So it's a little different, whole different show. But oxytocin is that bonding hormone. And the great thing about that is that now they're doing research on working with autistic individuals or different people who have social phobias or schizophrenia, and using that, working with putting this oxytocin in a nasal spray and being able to have them smell it, basically, and then that would help them to feel more comfortable or bond more comfortable with people. So very practical application of this very fascinating research. They're doing research with insulin and how they did researchers are aggressively pursuing the medication to manage Alzheimer's disease and mild cognitive impairment. And it's connected to insulin. In a study of 33 patients with Alzheimer's, intranasal insulin therapy led to improvements of verbal memory. Wow. Crazy, huh? Okay. We are getting ready to go right out to break. Our first break. I can't believe it. Our first break already. All right. So get ready for more fascinating information after break on the Brain Lady Speaks radio show.
With her thorough understanding of brain chemistry, Julie Anderson provides you with tools and processes that will change your life in a positive way. Julie uniquely blends science and psychology when she shares her knowledge and information with businesses, entrepreneurs, women's groups, and families to improve workplace morale and productivity, parents creating dynamic relationships with their children, and women achieving more in life and business. Julie Anderson will be right back with Brain Lady Speaks on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
Runners are frequently plagued with injuries, aches, and pains. Much of these injuries can be traced to how they are landing on their feet when they run. When a runner lands on their heels, it sends forces up to 3 times their weight through their body. In the journal Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise, it was recently reported that runners who land on the ball of their foot are 40% less likely to have repetitive stress injuries than those who touch down heel first. When a runner lands on their forefoot, the impact is barely measurable. Shape Magazine says to land on the outer ball of your foot, behind the second to last and pinky toes. After the front of the foot hits, let your heel naturally touch down, then push off with your toes again to begin the next step. I'm Annette Hammond. If you're a fan of Fitness Minute, like us on Facebook at Fitness Minute with Annette Hammond.
Are you ready to go beyond happy and to live joyfully? Tune in to Lessons in Joyful Living with Kimberly Rinaldi. Kimberly believes in empowering others, and that through it, you have the ability to break through any and all barriers. Each week, Kimberly shares from decades of combined experience to help you go past happy and get to joyful living. To truly stand in a place of peace, joy, and abundance, and know that it's calling for each and every one of us. Lessons in Joyful Living, Tuesdays 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network. Welcome back to Brain Lady Speaks on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network. By including the latest scientific research on the brain-personality connection, Julie Brain Lady Anderson provides her clients with the all-important why behind what people do and how they think. The information she shares will help those who hear to accelerate their success in life and business through the discovery of their natural gifts and maximizing their brain power. Here again is your host, Julie Anderson, with Brain Lady Speaks on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Okay, so obviously I can spend an entire show on smell, considering that we just ran through that first segment. So just to touch on a couple more things that I thought were fascinating in a few of the studies that I was reading. So we talked about oxytocin, we talked about insulin in an intranasal spray, and they're also doing work on ketamine. Ketamine's a tranquilizer, okay? It's been, considered that illicit party drug or special K. Well, guess what? It actually can help with memory and mood. And so they're talking about, they did a study of 26 individuals who had treatment-resistant depression. This is fascinating. Treatment-resistant depression, and a single dose of ketamine through the neural spray or through the nasal spray showed that they had significantly reduced suicidal thoughts. So think about the implication of this. I mean, this is crazy good stuff here. We're talking about improving memory or improving, helping Alzheimer's with insulin, with oxytocin and social disorders. But this one's pretty serious. We did a show back, I can't remember which month it was. It's several weeks ago. We did a show on suicide and suicide prevention. And think about the effects of this in a moment of strong suicidal thoughts. If this could be kind of like that emergency go-to when an individual is that deep down in the dumps, that they could take this little sniff of this nasal spray and it could pull them out of their suicidal thinking. Powerful information. Now, on the fun side of memory, here's the fun side. It didn't take long, obviously, for neuroscience to filter into the marketing world. And a lot of people have known that for a long time, smells were associated with marketing and buying. Now we understand the neuroscience behind it. There are certain stores that will deliberately induce smells into certain sections of their stores to induce people to purchase. It helps to increase and improve the mood of individuals. It's funny because, like I said, that sense of smell is closely linked to the centers for emotion, memory, and creativity in the brain. So it has a lot of these far-reaching implications. Dr. Avanish Kant, who did some research on it, did research with a baked potato in the oven and had people think about positive memories, and their memories were more vivid. They were able to pull up more details about the memories when they were in this room that was, had this smell induced into it. It's interesting because when you're enjoying a delicious meal, 80% of what we taste is smell. So it's very closely linked to smells. So it actually activates different portions of the brain depending on what's going on at any particular time. But it can activate the portion of the brains that control drive and pleasure. It activates the orbitofrontal cortex, which is involved in drug addiction, which is one of the reasons why some people become addicted to food because of the smells. Chicago University found that 84% of shoppers, I should say, found identical new shoes more attractive when there was a pleasant aroma in the room. So marketers are looking at this and saying, we can inject a positive smell into a room and the results are going to be, huge. We can sell a whole lot more if we do this. As I said, 80% of our taste is involved in the sense of smell, or is controlled by the sense of smell. So if you ever have to eat something, this is why when we were growing up, I don't know if your parents did this, but when we were growing up, we used to, like, if we were eating something we didn't like, because my mom was a big person for, you finish all the food on your plate, right? And so if we had to finish it and we didn't like it, we'd plug our nose as we took the bites. And that's the reason why, is because so much of what we smell is connected to the taste, and it kills the taste if you get rid of the sense of smell. Also why when you're sick and your nose is all stuffed up, things don't taste nearly as good. But there's all kinds of different things. They're doing research. The Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry is doing research on actually using this to help combat obesity in the United States, because if they could add a certain compound to capsules that boost the taste or release aromas, they would reduce it into bite-sized pieces so that people would chew more, have chewy ingredients, and more complex odors in food, because the more complex the aromas are, that helps people to feel more full, not as hungry. They're also doing research on smell and learning in classrooms. They found that they had a couple of control groups, or a couple of groups where they were teaching the kids the same thing. They did a baseline test to measure scores, and then they taught new things to both groups. The exact same teaching was done to both groups. One group had a smell infused into the classroom during the teaching period, during the learning period, and then that same smell was reintroduced during the testing period. And the group that had the smells outperformed the group without the smells, without the aromas injected into the classroom. So there's a lot of very positive implications to this research. Fascinating stuff. So if you need to improve your learning and memory, bake cookies while you're learning. No, I'm just joking. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the mom's brain. I found this pretty fascinating. We all know that if I've had 3 kids, and we all know that the body goes through this mass of changes during and after pregnancy. But a 2001 research or article that was published in Behavioral Neuroscience, they showed really talked about a study where they were actually measuring different parts of the brain. So using an MRI, they measured women, 19 new mothers, a few weeks after they had given birth. And they had them ask the mothers to select words from a list of positive descriptors, such as beautiful, perfect, special, to describe how they felt about their babies and about the experience of parenting. When the scientists mapped the mothers' brains again about 3 months later, some areas had grown, including the hypothalamus, the amygdala, and the substantia nigra, regions that are involved in caring for, learning about, and forming positive feelings towards newborns. Interesting, huh? The planning and decision-making part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, also grew. And that's funny because a lot of times after I had my kids, I felt like I was kind of brain dead. But according to this recent science, there's actually portions of the new mother's brain that grow and increase in size. And it is interesting that the mothers who initially chose more of the positive words to describe their feelings about their baby showed more brain growth. Now, researchers aren't exactly sure why this happens, if it's the positive feelings that cause the brain growth, or if it's the hormonal change in the brain and that brain change that causes the positive feelings. They're not sure which comes first, the chicken or the egg in this situation, but they are noticing that there's a huge connection between mothers who have newborns and their brain. And it's interesting because, again, practical application of this research. It's pretty fascinating. However, think about this, what if in some women who suffer from postpartum depression, it's more than just the hormonal factors? Maybe it has to do with the chemicals in the brain outside of hormones not creating this growth in certain sections of the brain that should be growing, that would give them the ability to bond more and to connect more with their newborn children. So what kind of what kind of possible treatments could this lead to in the future in terms of helping new moms that are dealing with or having difficulty bonding with their kids. Interesting, fascinating information. Okay, let's move on to language. I loved this article. This was a super great article. And one of the reasons why I loved it so much is because I always tell, I have taught and worked with home educators and educators, teachers, for many, many years. And one of the things that I focus on is helping people to work at teaching better, becoming better teachers. And one of the things, or helping the brains to develop better and earlier for long-term health of the brain. One of the things that I tell them is music, help the kids learn a musical instrument at a young age, and teach them to be bilingual. Research is being done on individuals who learn multiple language at a young age. How much it actually changes our brain in the way it grows and it's developed and it's wired. It says most of the evidence for this comes from studies of people who are bilingual. Brain scan studies showing the switching between two languages triggers different patterns of brain activity compared with speaking in one language, particularly in the prefrontal cortex. Now, I've talked in the past about how important the prefrontal cortex is for critical thinking, reasoning, understanding consequences for actions. So think about if we're giving our kids this extra little boost by teaching them multiple languages, they're going to have better access to that part of their brain once it develops. This is the part of the brain that is also involved in organizing and acting on information. So it works faster with people who are bilingual. Very, very interesting. We are running out of time again. We're getting ready to go to our next break. This is flying by super, super fast. When we come back, I'm going to talk more about the effect that language has on the brain, because there's some a lot more interesting information. And then we'll talk more about tips on learning, stressing the gut and the nervous system, and lots of fun stuff. So stand up, get some oxygen to your brain, and join me after break on the Brain Lady Speaks radio show.
With her thorough understanding of brain chemistry, Julie Anderson provides you with tools and processes that will change your life in a positive way. Julie uniquely blends science and psychology when she shares her knowledge and information with businesses, entrepreneurs, women's groups, and families to improve workplace morale and productivity, parents creating dynamic relationships with their children, and women achieving more in life and business. Julie Anderson will be right back with Brain Lady Speaks on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network.
Have you heard? The pages of American Patchwork and Quilting magazine come to life on our new weekly online radio show, American Patchwork and Quilting. Join Pat Sloan, our blogging and quilt designer host, as she talks about the latest trends, ideas, and inspirations. Her guests include quilt pattern designers, authors, quilt shop owners, and our editors. All quilters, just like you. Call in with your questions. Get quilting tips from industry experts. Learn about free patterns. Hear behind-the-scenes stories from our magazines, American Patchwork and Quilting, Quilt Sampler, and Quilts and More. Get the scoop on free stuff and find out more about the best independent quilt shops in North America. To listen to a live show, tune in Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Just log on to allpeoplequilt.com/radio. To hear past shows, go to iTunes and search for American Patchwork and Quilting Radio. We hope you'll join us because we know that quilting changes everything.
Laughter was such good medicine. Ancient Greek physicians sent their patients to visit comedians to be healed. In the 1300s, surgeon Henry D. Mondeville used to tell jokes to his patients in the recovery room. Dr. Mondeville must have been a bit of a Witzelsuch. That's a person who tells jokes and no one ever laughs. We laugh 6 times more when in the company of another person than we do by ourselves, and 30 times more when we are in a group. Laughter isn't under our conscious control. If you've ever started cachinnating at school, in church, or at a funeral, you know what I'm talking about. Cachinnating is another word for uncontrollable laughter.
It's Martin.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Welcome back to Brain Lady Speaks on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network. By including the latest scientific research on the brain-personality connection, Julie Brain Lady Anderson provides her clients with the all-important why behind what people do and how they think. The information she shares will help those who hear to accelerate their success in life and business through the discovery of their natural gifts and maximizing their brain power. Here again is your host, Julie Anderson, with Brain Lady Speaks on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the second half of the Brain Lady Speaks radio show here on the Lessons in Joyful Living Network. I am, overwhelmed with how fast the show is going. So with that in mind, we were talking about language and the brain and how it can rewire your brain prior to going to break. And before I move on to the next topic, I wanted to finish up with a couple of things because, again, the whole point is being able to take this information in neuroscience and give it practical, positive information or application into our lives. So back to brain and language. York University in Toronto said that it may also, being bilingual, learning multiple languages, or multilingual, I should say, because it's not just learning a second language, although most of what the research was done was on individuals who knew two languages. It says it may also make the brains more resilient. This study that was done at York University in Toronto, Canada, found that lifelong bilinguals tend to be diagnosed with dementia on the average of 4.5 years later than those who only know one language. And they tend to have more white matter, including their prefrontal cortex. There again, that really important portion of our brain. So their conclusion was that boosting language skills appears to build more connected brains, or brains that are more connected within themselves. There's still a lot of evidence going on in this, but there was last year, so this was just in 2015, they did a study on 608 people who had had a stroke. And Thomas Back of the University of Edinburgh in the United Kingdom found that of the bilinguals among them, 40% recovered full brain function, compared with only 20% of monolinguals, compared with only 20% of individuals who knew one language. He feels that his conclusion was this mental gymnastics, as he called it, and speaking several languages could build extra connections that improve function and help cope with damage. So there's still a lot of research that's being done in this, but the bottom line is learn a second language. Doesn't matter how old you are, and you don't have to become fluent in it. It's not the fluency as much as it is just simply learning, creating those new neural pathways, because learning new things creates new neural pathways. And if you have children, give them that extra little boost in having them learn a second language, because it's going to be a whole lot easier for them when you're under 12 years old to learn a second or third language. Okay, let's talk about tips for learning. So some practical tips. If you are a student, if you are a parent, you want to help your kids learn more, all kinds of things, lots and lots and lots of information on neuroscience that have come out about this. But here's just some quick information that's coming out of neuroscience. Scientific American Mind in October of 2013 brought out 4 great tips. One is getting visual, they said. Apparently learning via graphic novels, comic books, is about to become the next best thing, because what they found that at the University of Oklahoma, they found that comic books were better at helping business majors remember things word for word than traditional textbooks. The reason why this happens, people, is because it engages more than one sense. It's what I call multi-sensory learning. So you're not just hearing the words in your head when you are reading them out of a textbook. You are now able to pull into your brain and pull back up that picture that was associated with the words that you were learning. And in this case, it's graphic novels or cartoons. which is very oftentimes invokes a lot of emotion as well. So great way to increase your learning. If you are learning boring stuff from a textbook, create your own graphic novel. In other words, create your own cartoons. You don't have to be an expert drawer to do this. Stick figures work just fine, and they bring up the visual in your brain the same as a very intricately drawn character. But draw pictures, take notes in picture form. You'll find that your brain uses it or retains it a lot better. Point number 2, or tip number 2, join the gym. Study after study has confirmed that regular exercise improves cognitive function, memory, and even students' grades. Cardiovascular exercise sends more oxygen to the brain. We know this. We've been told this many, many times. And as you age, some researchers suggest that the cumulative effect may benefit neuron health. In one particularly fascinating bit of research, scientists at the University of Illinois set up rats' habitats in a variety of different ways, some with bright colors, lots of activities and toys, some with lots of different foods and smells, others with a running wheel. In the end, the only factor that mattered to the rats' brain power was the exercise reel. And the rats that exercised did better on cognitive tests and had healthier brains than the others. So we can learn a little something from those vermin fighting one out in the garage right now. Maybe I need to set him up an obstacle course with an exercise reel. No, then he'll get smarter and he'll outsmart me even more. Okay, moving on. Tip number 3, share your progress. This is really fascinating. Recording or recopying class notes is helpful. So you take your class notes or you take your initial notes, you go home and you rewrite those notes or draw them, as I just talked about, into a second notebook. That helps you to retain information better. However, they're finding we're wrapping in how can we use technology to do something positive. They are finding that composing updates on social media about what you are learning and then posting it on things like Twitter have become, they're finding that more and more students are doing this. Researchers at Michigan State University recently found that students who regularly tweet as a part of their classes are more engaged with the course material and, get this, they get better grades. Isn't that funny? By tweeting. But the point is what you're doing every time you're tweeting something, you are repeating in your brain the concept that you learned. And then if somebody responds to that tweet, it refreshes it again in your brain. So you're actually helping your brain to learn in these situations. Isn't that funny? So see, we got some positive things about tweeting. Okay, tip number 4, test yourself before your study. I thought this was fascinating. One experiment from 2009 found that students who tried to answer a neurology test questions before reading the topic. So they went to the test at the end of the chapter. They tried to do that test before they even read the information in the chapter that contained the answers. So they did this before reading up on each topic, and they recalled more information a week later than students who were given a list of the keywords and topics beforehand, and even students who were given the same test questions and told to memorize them. The experts haven't quite figured out why this is, because it's counterintuitive to what we've been taught about learning. However, it is working. And it seems that if you take that practice test before you even study the information, by answering something wrong, your brain better remembers what the right answer is. Funny little tip, huh? Those are some fun learning tips. Okay, let's move on. We talked last week about the connection between the brain and the gut. And some research that has come out fairly recently about how to soothe the sensitive gut was done at the University of North Carolina, and they were doing cognitive behavioral therapy, so thinking therapy basically, in helping treat IBS or irritable bowel syndrome. When the brain perceives pain, it tends to fret over that sensation and amplify it. So it's like that hyper focus when you're feeling pain. And this could work with lots of different things. But this particular study that was conducted at the University of North Carolina was dealing with IBS. And they found that meditation and other relaxation techniques can calm this autonomic nervous system that gets kind of out of control when you're in intense pain, and raises the heart rate. And when it raises the heart rate, it just causes more intestinal contractions. And they found that meditation and other relaxation techniques will calm this whole system in your brain. So it helps you by it. You need to induce very positive thoughts, feelings and sensations that calm. This is done through, one of the common techniques they do is what's called progressive muscle relaxation. And this is something that I do just when I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety for some reason, just working towards a deadline, or I got to get information out to a publisher or whatnot. This is great if you're experiencing a lot of anxiety. And you do this by simply sitting in a quiet space or laying down in a quiet space, flexing and relaxing each of your key muscles groups. So you just kind of start with your feet, and you flex your feet, you stretch your feet, and then you just totally relax your feet. And then you focus on your calves, and you do the same. And you focus on and what that does is it calms down this entire automatic nervous system and gets it all to just relax. And when it relaxes, it stops contracting, it lowers the heart rate, and in this particular study that was done in North Carolina, will help with IBS. So, interesting information there. Ooh, lots of stuff on the brain and food. Lots of stuff on the brain and food. Let me see here. What are we going to do? We've got 1 minute before we go to break. They have, when we come back, we're going to talk about what they're doing, what they're finding about sugar and food, sugar and memory. We're going to talk about possible or research that's being done on possibly helping the brain of comatose patients to reactivate or just show some activity when their brain is showing none. And we're going to talk about laughter. I love laughter. Laughter is like my funnest topic. So we've got a lot more to cover on the Brain Lady Speaks radio show. And before we go to our last break, I want to thank you for rushing through all this information with me. And remember, contact me if you have questions or you want more information on this. Get up, stretch, move, and get ready to come back after the commercial break on the Brain Lady Speaks radio show.
With her thorough understanding of brain chemistry, Julie Anderson provides you with tools and processes that will change your life in a positive way. Julie uniquely blends science and psychology when she shares her knowledge and information with businesses, entrepreneurs, women's groups, and families to improve workplace morale and productivity, parents creating dynamic relationships with their children, and women achieving more in life and business. Julie Anderson will be right back with Brain Lady Speaks on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network.
First official 4th of July party was held at the White House in 1801. But did you know that countries other than the U.S. celebrate American Independence Day or July 4th? Denmark, Italy, Portugal, and England all have 4th of July parties. In fact, the British celebrate their independence with bungers and fizzgigs, otherwise known as firecrackers, just like in America. Squib is slang for an electric match used in pyrotechnics. Our dog celebrates July 4th every year the same way, by cowering under the bed. Many European celebrations take place, of course, at American military bases. I'd like to send a special thanks to all our armed forces stationed around the world for everything you do to provide freedom and independence to America. I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
If you're ready for a big change in your work, your career, your happiness, your life, it's time for the $1 Million Mindset with Marla Tabaka. Monday afternoons at 2, 1 Central on TogiNet.com. Marla believes that with the right mindset, anything is possible. Join us as successful life coach Marla Tabaka inspires you and her clients to explore, discover, and live your dreams by developing what she calls the $1 Million Mindset. Marla will inspire you to take action on your dreams and reveal secrets to success that will help you realize your own unique power. Tune into the $1 Million Mindset for heartwarming stories with Marla Tabaka. Learn tips and tricks to building a successful business and unlock the secrets to creating a happier, more balanced life through abundant thinking and attraction power. For more information on the $1 Million Mindset, go to our website, marlatabaka.com. That's MarlaTabaka.com. It's the $1 Million Mindset with Marla Tabaka. Monday afternoons at 1 p.m. Central on TogiNet.com.
Welcome back to Brain Lady Speaks on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network. By including the latest scientific research on the brain-personality connection, Julie Brain Lady Anderson provides her clients with the all-important why behind what people do and how they think. The information she shares will help those who hear to accelerate their success in life and business through the discovery of their natural gifts and maximizing their brain power. Here again is your host, Julie Anderson, with Brain Lady Speaks on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the last segment here on the Brain Lady Speaks radio show. Okay, let's get right into this. Awakening an unconscious mind. This is fascinating. So there's been a lot of information. I'm sure everyone's probably seen things about, where they've seen the pictures of brain researchers and all of the little electrical patches, all the little patches put on the brain, and then they're measuring the brain waves, and you can watch the brain waves on the, on a computer screen. And what happens a lot of times with individuals who have had brain damage, patients who are in a coma or a vegetative state or minimally conscious, there's just not a lot of brain activity going on. But now there's a rigorous study by a group at the Liège University Hospital Center in Belgium, and they have found that a simple treatment called Transcranial direct current stimulation can temporarily raise awareness in minimally conscious patients. They take the electrodes, they put them on the scalp like you've seen in the pictures, and then they have this weak electrical current. So it's not like shock therapy, okay? They're not like shocking the poor brains to death. They're just sending out a little bit of electrical therapy to try to stimulate some of the brain tissue to become active. Stephen Lauries, who's the neuroscientist that does this, he does it for 20 minutes to the patient's left prefrontal cortex. And this is the area that is involved in attentiveness and working memory. So trying to just stimulate that and see if they can get some activity going. For patients in a vegetative state who display no communication or purposeful behavior, the stimulation might lead to improvement in patients. So they've seen that when they do this, there is a little bit of electrical stimulation that starts that they can see in the brain after they do this. Exactly how much of this is bringing up consciousness or what the future of this particular therapy is, it's interesting to think about if there's a there's an electrical stimulus that goes on, because our brains are nothing more than electrical impulses running from one neuron to the next. Could they reinvigorate or jumpstart, if you would, kind of like, jumping a dead battery? Could they get the brain in certain areas to activate? It may not work with people who are completely flatlined in their brain activity, but what about individuals who are right on that border? Interesting research that's being done in this area. So it'll be cool to find out what happens in the future of that. Okay, I said we were going to talk about sugar and memory and laughter and memory, good and bad. So a study that was done where was this study done? The Medical Center in Berlin, the Charité University Medical Center in Berlin was doing a research on blood level glucose. So we're talking about the people who have diets with a lot of sugar in them or other carbohydrates found that they can actually be damaging to brain structure and function. People with diabetes are characterized by chronically high levels of blood glucose, and it has been linked to, of course, an elevated risk in dementia. A smaller hippocampus, which is connected to memory. So they did this research, and they found that higher levels of both glucose measured were associated with worse memory, as well as smaller hippocampus and compromised hippocampal structure. Further evidence showed that glucose might directly contribute to hippocampal atrophy. So the message that comes out of this study is don't eat too much sugar and don't give too much sugar to our kids. You know, we're talking about this is memory. If they're trying to learn something in school and they're drinking sodas and they're eating a lot of candy, which is what they may tend to immediately reach for because of needing the extra energy because they're not getting enough sleep at night, it's just going to mess up everything, and it really will, you know, help to, or it really will have a negative effect on their grades, as well as long-term disaster. So if you are in that position where you fight blood glucose levels, you might want to think about really paying attention to it, because you want to save your hippocampus so that you can not have early onset dementia or Alzheimer's. Okay, moving on to laughter. I loved this one. I am a big advocate for laughter. I tell people, I don't care if you're laughing with me or you're laughing at me, so long as you're laughing, I'm happy. Because the effect that laughter has on the brain and the body, we should do a show. I will do a show in the future just on the research that's been done on laughter. And when I have my big power, I talked about this last week on the show, my big powerhouse 2-day intensive, my mind-blowing, life-transforming event, my Step Into Your Power, Rock Your Natural Gifts event that we have taking place in October here out in Anaheim, California, the first Friday and Saturday of October. And I will break every single session. So I break every 45 minutes, and I always start the next session with a funny video, a 2, 3, 4-minute video that's just a comedy routine that makes people laugh, because laughter is that good for your brain and your body. They have done some more research in, again, this is research that's being done on laughter. This gentleman named Karuna, well, I guess it could be a female, I'm not really sure, Subramaniam at the Northwestern University. Oh, no, it's her. I apologize. Karuna is a her. They found that boosting the mood of volunteers increased their likelihood of having an aha moment. So we're talking about creativity that helped them to solve word association puzzles. Those who watched a Robin Williams comedy special did measurably, their word, not mine, measurably better at the task using insight than those who watched a quantum electronics talk or a scary movie. Yeah, I think a quantum electronics talk may just put your brain to sleep. The games that they were doing had players, they had to find a word that connects 3 seemingly unrelated words together. And this is a test that's been done for decades to help demonstrate a person's ability to do creative problem solving. In the brain, sudden insight is accomplished by increasing activity in the brain's anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC, prior to solving each problem. The region is involved in regulating attention and problem solving, and it seems to work in conjunction with other brain areas, either to stay focused on a particular strategy or to switch to a new one. So the researchers here found by using functional MRI machines, so these are the machines that actually watch your brain as you are thinking. Okay, so they're watching which parts of the brain are firing, which parts of the brain are using the most glucose, which parts of the brain are the most active. They found that people in a positive mood had more of the activity in the anterior cingulate cortex. And this would probably, their theory is that this would probably help them to prepare the brain better to find novel solutions or to do this creative problem solving. Participants who watched anxiety-inducing movies such as The Shining, however, showed less activity in the ACC and less creative creativity in solving the problems. It's interesting when your brain, I've talked about this again before on a past show. If you want to find out the information on stress in the brain, go back and look for that topic. When your brain perceives any kind of stress, the automatic portions of the brain take over. And when those automatic portions of the brain take over, they suck all of the oxygen out of the thinking portion in the brain. So if you're trying to do something that's creative problem solving and you stress yourself out, even by watching a movie, because it's scary, it stresses your brain out. It sucks all of the oxygen out of the front portion of the brain, the top portion of the brain, the thinking portion of the brain. And in doing so, it leads to less creativity, less ability to think and solve problems. So the message is, the more positive you are, the more you laugh, the more you're going to stimulate this activity in the upper levels of your brain that are going to help you to think better. So lots of application, lots of practical application that can come out of that study, not just to help teams creative problem solving in business, or if you have a life issue that you're trying to solve, laughter can actually help you that. But it's also good for so many other things. And we'll revisit the topic of laughter clearly in the future because it's such an awesome topic. Well, folks, that is going to wrap up the show for today. Oh my goodness, I can't believe these shows always go by so fast. So fast. It's just incredible. But thank you for spending the time. I hope some of these tidbits that I shared with you today, you can walk away with and find a practical application in your life. Start the morning off with a funny YouTube video. Put yourself in a good mood right out the start, and your brain is going to love you. Learn a second language. Keep the sugar down. Let's see, what else did we learn? Lots of fun stuff. So thank you for joining me today on the Brain Lady Speaks radio show. As always, please reach out to me on all those avenues that I talked about at the beginning of the show. And if you are interested in doing a complimentary consultation with me, please go to my website, yourbestmindonline.com, and connect with me. Let me know. We'll chat. We'll do 30 minutes. We'll schedule that, and we'll get you in, and we'll talk about ways that neuroscience can help you in your life. And if there's any way you can join me in Anaheim at the Grand Californian Hotel and Conference Center on October 7th and 8th, 2016, please do so. Please join me for the mind-blowing, life-transforming event. Your life will be completely changed. It is like no other 2-day intensive you've ever been to. So join me on that. You can find information on that by going to the yourbestmindonline.com website under events. And folks, until next week, I want you to have an amazing week. I want you to enjoy the sunshine in the beautiful summer that we're having. And get out, exercise, laugh, and have a great time. Until next week, I wish you well. This is Julie Brain Lady Anderson on the Brain Lady Speaks radio show.
For tuning in to this episode of Brain Lady Speaks with Julie Anderson. Julie Brain Lady Anderson is considered to be one of the nation's top experts on the brain-personality connection.